Kisuk Wishnam, Kisuk Kukit, Kisuk Quiet, Kapinishkish. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. I'm your host, Kenshuke Tashmiat, also known as Peter Not So White. And welcome back to another Wealthy Warrior Wednesdays. This week has been truly interesting. And a lot of growth. Always a lot of growth this week. And one thing I realized that, some people, they don't like to do because situations get hard is being truthful to who you are. Honestly, 100% being truthful to who you are and what you believe in, what you know to be true to this day. And some people will just not do this because the easiest path is to just comply and become a yes person and just to not, ruffle your feathers and not swim against the current like a fish. When a fish wants to go somewhere and spawn, they actually have to swim upriver against the tide to come in to safe spots so they can hatch their eggs, or they can lay their eggs so those eggs can spawn. And people don't want to do this. They want to, even a dead fish can swim with the current as the current takes it. It's not really swimming, it's dead, but you get the visual. And something that happened last week really triggered this, really upset me. And it is around a really touchy subject as well. Reconciliation. It's such a new thing for Indigenous people here in North America, is reconciliation and being able to hold spaces that our ancestors weren't granted before, with the whole residential schools and the 60 scoop and the banning of potlatches and ceremonies and traditions for almost 100 years. Reconciliation is about holding our spaces, about having hard conversations, about taking back these things that were once taken from our ancestors. And some of you may have remembered last year in 2022, the Vancouver Canucks, I actually did a podcast on this, know your worth. The Vancouver Canucks reached out to me. Well, not the Canucks per se, but a lady reached out to me who was one of the organizers on putting together what they like to call an Indigenous Appreciation Night. And it was amazing, it was an amazing thought, but it feels like it was rushed and there wasn't enough thought put into it. They saw the Edmonton Oilers do this and they just, monkey see, monkey do. They wanted to piggyback off something without doing proper research, without having the proper people in places to do these hirings. And a lady who reached out to me, who I knew right off the, I didn't know right off the bat, but after talking with her, was not very educated at all in Indigenous people. We got into conversations about things, and she overcame me through Instagram, and she said she liked what I posted. And then some of you may not know the difference either, so we're gonna talk about it a little bit. The style of more stuff that I do is more comes from the prairies, the plains, and that's powwow. And that's the type of style I dance, is powwow, and that comes from the plains, the prairie peoples. And I live out here on the west coast, on the unceded Coachella territories of the Musqueam, Squamish, and the Tsleil-Waututh people. And the west coast people have such a beautiful culture as well. But the way they do things, the way they drum, the way they sing, is a lot different from the prairie plain style. And it's very distinctive. Like, if you heard the styles of drumming and singing, you would know, oh, they are like two totally different things. And you don't even have to do that much research. But we talk about things, and she wanted me to perform twice. And then she's like, oh, can you also dance to the Wolfpack singers? And I know some people from that dance organization, and they're West Coast. And I was like, oh, sorry, I can't do that. We're two different styles. And she kind of was like, what? Like, it's drumming and singing. But fast forward, I declined it because my worth felt like it was more. And then flash forward a year, I seen that they were going to have another Indigenous night. But nothing in my email. No, maybe a reconnection, a rekindling, maybe let's try to move forward from last year and learn and make better and do better from the Vancouver Canucks, from this lady, Kelly St. Marie, who reached out to me. But nothing. They didn't reach out to me, myself, or they never reached out to another Indigenous Juno Award-winning artist named Inez Lewis. They never reached out to any of us to try to, make things work this year. And it always feels like lip service from certain organizations on, reconciliation. And they just want to use us as their token still. Because what happened was there is a lady who's in the Lower Mainland, the Vancouver area, who is under investigation for fraud, basically not being Indigenous to these islands, to the Turtle Island, to this place. And there's lots of stipulations because people have known her since she was a little girl, and she's South Asian and white. And so for you that don't know what South Asian is, the correct term is South Asian, but most people know them as East Indians, the other Indians, the Indians that Christopher Columbus was trying to reach, to look for, to trade with. And so East Indian is actually, they're part of the Asias, and they are South Asian. So she is under investigation for these things, and she cannot prove her lineage. And she's been coming around the community for about 20 years now. And with this whole reconciliation thing, having these hard conversations, saying, hey, if you can't prove your lineage, please stop doing what you're doing, because you're taking spaces from people that are of the descent, who are born into trauma, who are born into these things, who, have hardships throughout their whole lives. and you're holding these spaces from these people. And when we first started coming out about this, other people have tried to call her out, and she used the same tactics, and people kind of just stopped. But myself, I personally reached out to her because it was ironic that when I first started dancing, I didn't know much about the community. I didn't know anything, and then I overcame her classes somehow. And she used to hold dance practice in the Friendship Center here in East Vancouver on Monday nights. And then I went to the class. I didn't know what to expect. And she was a darker of skin, so I didn't question at all. And I was, nervous and shy because I'm reconnecting. I'm a vulnerable person at that time. So I didn't question, ask anything. And as time went on, pieces started to fall into place. And, she basically just taught me the basic, what is it called? It's called the intertribal step. So it's just a 1-2 step that you would do, in intertribal. And that's what she taught me. Everything else you see, and I don't even actually feel like she taught me, because it's within my genetics. It's within my blood that this style, this dance is, because I'm indigenous. It was just sleeping within me, so she just helped wake it up. And then everything else you see, the style, the way I dance now, was all of myself pushing me, growing and learning and going to powwows and, getting in the community more. And when I asked her, where she come from, because I heard stipulations if she said that she was Cree, I said, so are you Cree or not? And she would avoid the question totally. And then she, tried to flex on me, saying, oh, who taught you to dance? How long have you been dancing? And questioning me on these things, which really, really upset me, because, I was adopted as a kid. Yeah, I come from a broken family, a broken home, which many indigenous people do still to this day. And I'm also reconnecting myself because of what colonization has done to my people and my family and residential schools and everything, which really, really upset me. And it literally stuck my feather up. And I said, okay, I asked you nicely, and you come back at me defensively. So a little bit of time moving forward, we started to press her and ask questions. And then there was a TikTok that was made by one of my friends, and all I did was reshare it. I reshared it to my page. And people started to call me a bully, and people started to come out of the community, and the people she had kind of surrounded herself with started to do these things. And that was in September all this happened. But I stood my ground. I knew what my ancestors had fought for me to be here. And I did question myself at times, and I self-doubted myself. But that's when you need to understand your why. And it's for these younger generation, the youth that are going to come after me, to do this hard work, to push through, to tell people, hey, it's not okay to take advantage of a vulnerable community for your own profit and your own clout and your own things, from the ego. Fast forward, I get a text from someone who was watching the game, and this dance group was out there, and it set me off, because I declined this gig performance because the Vancouver Canucks weren't being honest, untruthful on what they really wanted. They wanted tokens. They didn't care about us. They didn't want to really care. They just wanted to do lip service. And it just felt like that was this year again. And more people ended up coming out a lady who's local to these lands came out as well, who's known this lady for a long time, for many, many years, since this girl was started coming around in kindergarten. And she put a long rant out. It wasn't more of a, I guess it was more of a rant. It was like everything she has witnessed and known from this lady. And she posted it, and it got a lot of activity within the first couple hours. A lot of reshares, a lot of people talking, discussing within the community on, what it means to do this and what it means to be Indigenous. And people always bring up blood quantum and status cards and all that stuff and colonization. But she stood her ground, and she stuck true to what she knew. And the same thing with me. I'm pushing forward with trying to get this into the news, to talk about reconciliation, talking about moving forward, talking about holding these spaces, talking about holding people accountable. The same thing for me to go impersonate a person of the law. That should be the same standards for people impersonating to be Indigenous, because more people are starting to do this. And you would ask yourself, why? Why would anyone impersonate to be Indigenous? Because it's cool now. It's cool to be Indigenous for the clout, for the grants, for the money, for the praises, And when I was growing up, it wasn't cool to be Indigenous. You were made fun of for being Native. It was not cool. There was a lot of racism in schools, and I grew up and I was in a smaller community at first, a small town, and there was a lot of racism within that town. There still is to this day. And it's definitely not an easy conversation. And I'm sure you've had situations where things were hard, and you really wanted to say something to someone or do something, but you didn't, because you question yourself. You didn't stand to truly who you are or what you stand for, right? And maybe there are situations where you did the opposite, where you stood your grounds and you didn't let people walk over you, people get in your head, people put these false narratives in your head saying, you're wrong, this and that. You stood your grounds. And that's what more people need to do nowadays. I'm not saying, go out there looking for a fight or things like that, but just be true to who you are, who you know you are within your heart. And it's funny because people say, hey, you're a motivational speaker, you're this and that, but yet you're putting someone down by saying these things, and you're a bully and this and that. But when I really look at it, this is what my ancestors did for many years. They held their grounds with the government. There were secret societies. We kept our language afloat through secret societies and ways, our ceremonies, our practices. And the government, these schools, tried to brainwash us to thinking our ways were bad. But we held, my ancestors, not myself per se at that time, held their grounds. They knew what was true in their heart, and they perceived and they pushed through with their whole life. And they did that hard work in order for me to be here today, to do what I do, to be able to dance and do the things that I do, to learn my language, to grow my hair out long, to go into ceremonies, to be able to participate in other people's ceremonies, to be able to travel North America, to dance, to meet new people. That's because they stuck to who they knew in their hearts, who they were. And that could be the same for you as well, where you come from, where your bloodline is. Your ancestors may have stuck to what was true in their heart for you to be here. So if there's something that you truly believe in, you truly think is destined for you, then hold your grounds, hold your space, and just understand that you are going to be tested on that faith. Because faith isn't faith until it's tested. And, I'm starting to realize that now. And yes, you can be more than one thing. And I used to, I kind of doubt myself when I would post things after they kept saying these things about me. I'm like, well, I'm over here posting these inspirational quotes and things like that, but yet I'm trying to call someone out. But I'm just doing what my ancestors wanted, me to do. And that's hold people accountable for their things. And that's what we did as community people, as tribal people. We would hold each other accountable for things. And you were rewarded sometimes. You were rewarded with feathers or things like that in the community by holding yourself accountable. So that's what I want you to do, is start holding yourself more accountable to following your heart, to being true, to doing these things. And even me as myself, I do enjoy talking, I do enjoy these podcasts, I do enjoy what I've been doing, but it's a lot of work. And sometimes I feel like, maybe I'll just let it go, or, not do it this week, or, make an excuse to just not show up. But I know within my heart that even if I could just help one person today, I can change the course of their life in positive ways. And I've seen it before already. So I end up showing up day after day after day, holding my space, being who I am, knowing within my heart what I'm meant to do, And I truly am grateful for you to come along on this journey and support me as well. Because you, by supporting me, is also changing these lives of people that you may not even know. Because that gives me the confidence, that gives me the courage to keep pushing through by your support. That's crazy, right? To think about that. You supporting me is allowing me to share my light. So just be true to who you are. And understand that your light will shine on to others. So with that, I'm going to cut this podcast for the week. Sukuni for tuning in. Dagas. I'll see you next Wednesday. Take care, all my wealthy warriors. And remember, everything always happens for the right reasons. Take care.